You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Greetings and welcome to episode 274 of the Soul Forge podcast.
Welcome to the Soul Forge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soul Forge.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the show. Guess what? It's just me, Sean. There's no guest this week. There was a few ideas that I had, and nothing came together in time for this release. So here we are. It's just me. I was actually going to do a walk and talk episode. I haven't done one of those in quite a while, where I grab my headphones and while I'm delivering the mail, I just talk a stream of consciousness kind of thing. But it's the middle of winter and it's actually raining and it's super slippery, and I don't think I would have the concentration to both walk upright, deliver the mail, and talk to all of you out there in podcast land and give you something coherent. So I think what I will do is save that for spring, summer, and fall. So that is something for all of you out there to look forward to. So I was thinking, what the heck am I going to talk about this week without a guest? It's going to be one of those classic episodes. And so I thought, well, maybe what I could do is revisit some of the early episodes of the podcast, and when I wasn't really too confident in my ability to bring you a clear, concise, coherent message, maybe revisit one of those topics. And then I thought, I don't feel like it because I'm tired and I don't want to, so I'm just going to talk about things and stuff. Mostly what I thought about if I was going to revisit an episode was episode 25 and 50 were both episodes about minimalism. So I thought what I would do is start talking a little bit about how my minimalism journey has actually progressed in the last 5 years since those episodes came out. Because as you're aware or may not be aware, the end of July will be the 6th year anniversary of the show. So 25 was probably somewhere around the end of 2017. I don't know. I didn't look it up. It doesn't even matter really anyway. But so let's see first of all, let's talk about what minimalism is. And of course, that's when you only bring intentional things into your life and you get rid of the clutter. On Netflix, what brought this whole thing along to me actually in the beginning was I saw, the minimalism documentary on Netflix. Let's see what that is. And it was these two guys, I think Ryan and Josh, and they were going on a journey. They wanted to just live with intention, get rid of the excess stuff. And one of the guys would just only wear black t-shirts. It was kind of his uniform, and he didn't have to think about it. So he could focus on other more important things, I guess. And it's not just buying stuff for the sake of having stuff. And some minimalists, well, everybody's different, I guess. But the common, what would you call it, stereotype of the minimalist is they have less than 100 items in their possession, including clothes. So they might have a couch, they might have a TV, they might not have a TV, they might have some books, they might not. They might just have a bed and a chair and a lamp. Who knows what else? They would have some dishes and they'd have some clothes, but they wouldn't have a lot of clothes. And I think these guys had 2 pairs of sneakers and a pair of boots or something. As many of you know, I recently moved into a new house and I've been looking at some of the stuff that I have. And I've got lots and lots of footwear, different types of sandals, different types of shoes, dress shoes, several pairs of boots. And do I want all of this stuff? Well, not really. But as a mailman, I do need different kinds of shoes and footwear. So, for example, sneakers or running shoes or whatever you call them, I have my good pair for nice days. I have my not so great pair for when it might be a little bit drizzly. And then I have my crappy pair for when it's really raining and I don't want my good shoes to get wrecked. So that's just 3 pairs of shoes right there. And of course, then once you don't wear them out for walking anymore for work, you need them for mowing the lawn or whatever, because you don't want to get your good shoes wrecked, right? So you need at least 4 pairs of shoes, and you probably have more that you're waiting to use once the other ones are all worn out. So I know I do. And then I've got my hiking boots for winter. I've got my other hiking boots for winter, and another pair of hiking boots for winter that are more warm. So there's all those kind of things. And then, there's just too much stuff. I've got too much stuff. I've always had too much stuff. So the whole minimalism idea really appealed to me. And looking around at all my stuff those 5 years ago, I I've got about 30 totes of collectibles, action figures and Starship replicas and Hallmark Christmas ornaments and other random things that I can't even think of at the moment. So much stuff and books, totes and totes of books, because when I was 18, just about to head off to university, I was like, well, you know what? I'm supposed to be educated, and a sophisticated person has like a library. So I started collecting books, not realizing how heavy they are and how often I would end up moving. So that's one thing I regret, was my book collection. What am I going to do with all these books? Am I going to read them multiple times? Not likely. I have read several books more than once, but it's a rare occurrence. But you spend all this money on them, you don't want to just toss them or just give them away. But what do you do with them? I don't know. I still haven't figured that part out. And moving into this new house here, I've actually got space to display some things. And like I mentioned in a previous episode, I believe I mentioned it anyway, I was able to empty about 10 or 12 totes of various collectible action figures and other things into the loft, and put the totes in the basement. And I piled up all the action figures mostly, and I realized I don't need probably 95% of actually, I don't need any of them, but I'd like to keep some, of course. But I've got my Etsy shop, Rusted Robot Toys, and I've been steadily selling some things. And since the whole minimalism journey took effect 5 years ago, every time I can go to a convention of some kind and sell my action figures, I do, and I have. So I've probably reduced my stuff by 4 or 5 totes over the years, and another few totes because of Etsy. So it's helping, but there's still so much. Like I've got so many Star Trek action figures from Playmates Toys from the 90s still in the package. And I'm like, well, I really need to have all this stuff, because my good buddy Andrew had a lot of action figures, especially Thundercats from the 80s. And I'm like, well, he's got all this stuff. I've got to have all that stuff too, because for some reason I was in competition with the amount of stuff that he had. Don't ask me why. It doesn't make any sense. I guess I won, but am I really the winner if I have all this crap that I've had to move about 25 times? No, not really. So anyway, where do we stand on the that's hard to say. The minimalist journey so far? Well, why don't I answer that question after this message from another podcast right here on the ESO Network.
It's time for a promo for the Epsilon 3 podcast.
The Epsilon 3? What do we talk about?
It's a Babylon 5 rewatch podcast.
Babylon 5? What's that?
It's the greatest 1990s sci-fi show in history.
How are we going to watch it?
With glee and excitement.
How would we rate those kind of episodes?
Out of jump gates.
How many jump gates?
Out of 5 jump gates.
Because it's Babylon 5.
That is correct. If you go to Zahadum, you will die. But you know what you won't do? You won't die listening to the Epsilon 3 podcast, right here on the ESO Network.
Okay, and we're back. Well, I'm back, because nobody else is here. It's just me and all of you out there listening. But anyway, where are we on the minimalism journey? I am not a minimalist, and it is very difficult to be one. I have gone through my clothes recently. I've got a lot of clothes, and I've got a box here that I'm going to give to my younger brother, Robin. Is he going to want them? Maybe. I don't know. But it's just a mere drop in the bucket of the clothes that I have. And of course, I've got a lot of clothes because my uniform for work, so there's that. But just my regular day-to-day clothes. I probably don't need all the shirts that I have, but I like them, and I don't always wear them all, but they're there just in case. And all the plaid button-up shirts that I have, I probably don't need 10 plaid button-up shirts, but I have them. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff, and it's very difficult for me to reduce the amount of stuff that I have. I've been doing it slowly here and there, but my parents were both mild hoarders or nostalgia stuff keepers, I guess. My mom ended up with a lot of the furniture and items from dead relatives, and now I've ended up with most of them. I've got stuff from my mom, I've got stuff from my grandparents and my great-grandparents, stuff that I'm not going to use, dishes and stuff. I've got my great-grandfather's set of 4 pipes and a tobacco holder, which I have in my great-grandmother's hutch, so it's on display. What the hell am I going to do with that stuff? I don't know. It's nostalgic, I guess, so I've got it, even though I don't remember my great-grandfather smoking a pipe and he died when I was 10. But I've got this stuff. Some hard decisions, I think, need to be made. Reducing the stuff slowly here and there, selling the stuff on the Etsy shop, giving it away to family and friends. Some stuff I've actually just thrown out, which is quite difficult to do because I've got that sentimental, nostalgic, whatever bug in my system that makes it very difficult to get rid of stuff. But there it is. Am I a minimalist? No. Will I ever be a minimalist? No, probably not. But the one thing that it allowed me to do was be more intentional with my collecting. Instead of just collecting everything because it was there, what I do is I curate my collection more and more. So I'm a big fan of robots and cyborgs and androids and all that stuff, and I always have been. In fact, as most of you'll know, I did the Rusted Robot podcast all about pop culture and robot stuff for about 7 years. And so I've got a huge robot collection, well, action figure collection of robots in my podcast office. And the other day, something came up in the pre-orders on the toy websites that I follow that I had to have. I know I didn't need to have it, but I really wanted it because it's a robot. So you remember the cartoon from the 90s called Gargoyles? Well, NECA is a toy company, and they're releasing a Steel Clan gargoyle robot. So basically it's a robotic gargoyle kind of creature. And it's coming out at the end of May. And I was like, oh man, I need that for my robot collection. And so I was obsessed with it for a few days, and I was looking at all the different places to pre-order it. US sites, Canadian sites, even in a site in Australia. And I was like, okay, well, if I get something from the States, I might have to pay duty, and the shipping's going to be extra expensive. And then I found a toy site in Montreal. I did some calculations, and then I realized, you know what? I'm living on a border town, and I've got friends on the other side of the border that I can ship my stuff to and still get it from an American site. So I did some research and calculations. If I bought the thing from a store in Montreal, it was going to cost over $80. And if I buy it from the States and get it shipped to the States, and even with the exchange, it's only going to be about $50. So I'm going to save almost $40 by living here in Sioux, Ontario, and not in Timmins or somewhere else far from the border where I can't get access to an American address. So, do I really need a robotic Steel Clan gargoyle type thing? Of course I don't. Am I going to get it? You're damn right I am. And in fact, what I'm doing right now is currently in the process of looking up the best type of shelf to build to display the stuff I am keeping. And once I figure out what I'm keeping, well, then the rest of the stuff is going to be put up on the Etsy shop. I haven't decided if I'm going to go the eBay route or not. 20 years ago, I wanted to have an eBay empire. I don't know. Etsy seems to be the easiest site to navigate. So once again, if you're looking for a bunch of toys, pop vinyls and other things, Rusted Robot Toys is on Etsy. I just listed a bunch of stuff the other day.
If you're loving this podcast, you should tell a friend about it.
Spread the word about podcasts you think they would enjoy. There's something for everyone, from entertainment and lifestyle
To news and politics
and more. Share it on social media. Believe it or not, some people don't know how great podcasts are,
or even how to find and listen to them.
You can help change that with a click. Tell your friends about your favorite podcast.
Thanks for spreading the word.
Essentially, I'm not a minimalist, but I am being more careful in my curation of my collection, not getting as many things, not getting things just because it says Star Trek on it. Actually, you know what? Playmates released a bunch of Star Trek action figures again this past year, and I saw them in store when I went across the river to the United States, because that's what we call it, going across the river, because it's just over the bridge. And I didn't buy any of them. First of all, I've got a lot of them from the 90s, and second of all, these ones look like crap. They looked better in the 90s than they do in the 2020s, so does that make sense? I don't know if it does or not, but that's when I realized I don't need everything just because I can get it. So that was nice. Yeah, I've got piles of books that I need to get rid of. That's a process. That's a journey. Who knows how that's going to go? That's my minimalist journey. Are you a minimalist? Do you want to become a minimalist? I don't know. It's a lot of work to downsize. And if you've got the nostalgia bug and you got to keep that stuff because it belonged to somebody important, well, then there you go. It's like all these pictures of relatives that I have, and I don't even know who most of them are because I just ended up with these boxes and boxes of pictures and photo albums. I don't know most of these people. Do I have to keep them? I don't know. There's nobody to answer to because nobody cares. Maybe I'll ask my brothers if they want them. But other than that, I guess that's it. There's not a lot else going on these days. I'm excited that in less than a month, the third season of Star Trek Picard is coming on. It's going to have all the original crew members from The Next Generation, so that's pretty neat. I've been watching the second half of Quantum Leap. Let's see what else. Melissa and I just finished the third season of Umbrella Academy, and we've just started the second season of Lock and Key. We might be watching Wednesday next. I'm not really sure. The second season of Valhalla Vikings, or Vikings Valhalla, is out. I have to watch that. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't know. There's lots going on. There's lots to watch. Lots of life to live. And just... you know what? Like I told you before, moving to Sault Ste. Marie was the best decision I think I've ever made. So that's good. I have no real complaints other than I have to work for a living, but that's most of the world. So I guess that's fine. Is there any topic you would like me to cover? Let's see. What is it? Oh, yeah. soulforgepodcast@gmail.com if you have any topic ideas or you want to be a guest or anything like that. Richard from Australia made a nice comment on a couple recent podcast episodes, so that's good. It's always good to hear from Richard. Bill Lamond, he made an email that I have not responded to about my idea to collect hourglasses, and he says, how about you don't? Maybe just have the one. And I haven't responded to his email. Sorry about that, Bill. I've just been lazy. I've been meaning to. But yeah, you're right. I don't need to collect hourglasses just because I've always wanted to. Maybe have the pictures of hourglasses on my computer so that it doesn't take up any space. That's what he suggested, so that's a good idea too. Other than that, I've got to go watch a couple episodes of Babylon 5 for the Epsilon 3 podcast that I do with Dan and Paul. Hope you're all checking out the Epsilon 3 and the Cosmic Pizza podcast. And other than that, I've got nothing else to say. Hope you're all well and wonderful and taking care of each other and enjoying this winter weather. But until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And remember, the value of time increases as the remaining time decreases. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Soul Forge podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit soulforgepodcast.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Soul Forge podcast is your best source for living your best life.
Think about it.
When they come alive, evil can't survive. Gargoyles. Disguised as a gargoyle, the evil Xanatos swoops into attack. But mighty Goliath breaks free. Lexington fires. And heroic Brooklyn charges into battle on the Ripon Rider cycle.
Get him!
Xanatos is stunned. And Goliath flies in to unmask him.
Adios, Xanatos!
When gargoyles come alive, evil can't survive. Gargoyles, Goliath, Brooklyn, Lexington, Xanatos. Other figures and vehicles each sold separately. Blast not included.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.